Ms. Kim is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank the committee chair and the ranking members for convening this hearing so we can hear directly from you who have served and experienced during the Afghan withdrawal. And so I want to thank you for being here and enduring these long hours, telling your stories. And this is the beginning of hopefully not only do we do the accountability of what actually happened, but how can we prevent going forward, but at the same time bring some, amplify the stories of what happened so we don't repeat the same mistakes. You guys really stepped up when the administration let so many down, and along the way you saved so many lives. So I want to let you know that your service will never be forgotten, and we will not let your stories go untoward, which is why we're having this hearing. So I want to thank you. The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan was very difficult for veterans who served to watch. In fact, according to the Department of Veterans Affairs, the calls that were made to the Veterans Hotline really increased about 98%, almost 100%, between August 14 and August 29. So you can see this was very, very difficult time for the veterans. So we owe it to you, the veterans who served in Afghanistan, to get answers to what went wrong during that withdrawal. And I see this hearing as an venue, an avenue to those conversations that we're starting. During that process, we saw Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore sending personnel to assist with the evacuation. So did Japan and South Korea, sending a few aircraft to also assist in that evacuation process. And my office worked very closely with the Canadian government when we couldn't get answers from our government. So I want to know what your coordination was like, if any, with other countries, servicemen and women on the ground. And let me ask specifically Mr. Hong and Mr. Mann, was our State Department helpful in coordinating that, and was it mostly coordinated through other foreign ministries or amongst personnel on the ground?
Thank you, Congresswoman. For our September 17th flight, in order for it to take off, we needed 4 different authorizations. We needed permission from the Taliban to depart Afghanistan. We needed permission to fly into Qatari airspace. We needed permission to land at Al Udeid and prioritization to be, put our personnel there. We had to negotiate all those things without a diplomatic relationship with the new government of Afghanistan, and in a situation that was very, very dynamic. Prior to the departure of the United States from Afghanistan on August 30th, there was a task force in place at the State Department to coordinate all those things, and there was a very clear process. I distinctly remember on the day that we announced that our country's diplomatic and military presence had ended in Afghanistan, that task force ended operations, and we were specifically told that at this point the evacuation was over, that private citizens needed to figure out their own solution, and I was at a loss, as were my co-organizers. Luckily, while the official State Department task force had ended, there were individuals in the State Department who still cared, who stepped up, who tried to figure out solutions for us and other private volunteer groups, despite the lack of clear authorities and clear policies on this. They are also unsung heroes in this, and they were working inside the bureaucracy. But yes, it was very difficult, Congresswoman, to figure out how to get a plane off the ground in a country where we no longer had a presence.
That's really speaking volume that members of Congress and our veterans and the evacuation support system, they had to rely on other nations to help our citizens and allies in a time of need. If you can add to that, please.
I'll just build on that. I think that there were outstanding individuals that went above and beyond the call within the State Department to help us get folks in. But what I will say is that overall, it was very, very difficult to coordinate with the State Department during the evacuation. I think we got better. And I think the private-public partnership that was displayed by these volunteer groups with the government and the State Department is probably precedent-setting, and I don't think it's going away. Future crises like this, we're going to continue to see it, so we need to figure it out. And then the other thing that I would just say is that I think that the private groups came up with a lot of solutions, proposed solutions that were very viable with potential third countries and places to go, lily pads. And it seemed to me that they were dismissed out of hand as these weren't viable groups or viable organizations, but yet they were the very people that were turned to whenever someone needed to get out in dire straits. And so I think listening to these private groups more and putting their solutions into play, because they have a lot of really good ideas on third countries and other options. And I think the State Department listening to them more and opening the aperture more for that dialogue is critical.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gentlewoman yields back. Mr. Crow is